What do you expect from Steph after leaving Game 3 with that ankle injury with a couple minutes left in the game?
I expect him to be Steph. I don't think the injury is going to be a huge deal. I mean, he said post-game that he's familiar with it after having a similar thing happen with Marcus Smart in March in Boston. And I just think Steph is an ultra competitor on this stage. I think his ankle would have to be falling off for it to significantly impact his game. Furthermore, though, y'all, even if Steph continues to show up with 40+, like, he's got to get some support, particularly on the defensive end where the Golden State Warriors were not who we thought they were in Game 3.
Monica, we talk about Steph being tired multiple games in this series, right? Because obviously he's being targeted defensively. Marcus Smart, it's 50 points in the paint that the Celtics had, and a lot of those were, post-ups from Marcus Smart going against that individual matchup of Stephen Curry. So him moving around so much, I wonder if that affects his shooting ability with his ankles being tight. Like, will we see shots that are short because of how they're going to force him to do so much on the court, and then all of a sudden having that tightness in your ankle, you know how that stuff works. It feels worse day 2, day 3, more so than day 1.
Yeah, I hear you, Jay, but I think for me sitting courtside, the one thing that is constant is Steph's ability to get his shot off and get it off quickly without a bunch of time, right? I think you see, to your point in terms of if that ankle is tight, you see a little bit more on the defensive end as opposed to the offensive end potentially. But I think they're going to go through everything they can in terms of treatment, or they have over this last 48 hours. I asked Steve Kerr about the short turnaround time. He's like, nah, it's just like a regular season game. They're not going to make too much of it. And so I'm not really concerned about Steph. Again, for me, it's not Steph, it's everybody else.
So, Draymond Green, we've been talking a lot heading into Game 3.
15 points, 15 fouls.
Yeah, we were talking heading into Game 3 because his energy, he brought it in Game 2. How are the refs going to respond and this and that? And then he says after Game 3, he didn't play with the force he needed to, right? And I wonder how much of that is because of what a deal his Game 2 was made out of, right? But what do you think about him needing to play with more force, Monica?
So the entire Warriors organization is using that word. In fact, Steve Kerr said to us, when you play with more force, and I'll throw in energy, paraphrase a bit, on the defensive end, you earn the right for shots to go in. And obviously, being an offensive juggernaut is not Draymond's calling card, but he is certainly the catalyst of the energy on the defensive end of the floor, and he sets the table offensively. Here's what I'm kind of noticing, y'all. I feel like everybody in the playoffs had these sort of swing games, right? Outside of the Warriors in the 40-point drubbing from the Grizzlies. Other than that, for the most part, we've seen these swings all playoff long, and I don't know if this is their first taste of it because they are up against a much more formidable opponent in terms of what they look to do. But, to me, the Celtics did this versus Miami, these sort of up and down swings. And so they are already sort of programmed and wired to respond. And I think you're watching the Celtics grow in real time. Now, tonight, I do think Draymond responds, mostly because the response looks like more than 4 rebounds. I mean, the Warriors were minus 16 on the glass to this Celtics squad. And rebounding, to me, is just purely an energy effort, a hustle stat, right? Like getting in there. Robert Williams has been terrific. But come on, Warriors, what y'all doing? So I think there are small things that he can do that will look like a bounce-back game. The curious part to me is how much of the talking and the trash talking is for him versus for agitating the Celtics, because the Celtics seem to be learning if we don't respond, it sort of neutralizes it.
Also, Monica, it's fascinating. Who do you trust more in the trenches, right? Like when you think about who Golden State has had to go through, obviously going through Denver without Jamal Murray, without Michael Porter Jr. You talk about even going through Memphis, Ja Morant gets hurt down the end. You talk about Dallas, Luka is incredible, but really else, Jalen Brunson, it's not the same degree of athletic ability and personnel that Boston has to throw at you. So that's what I'm starting to wonder. Like, damn, I think I'm starting to trust Boston more in the trenches than I am Golden State to win these games.
Listen, I said Golden State in 7 to start this, and that was purely for me off of home court advantage because I thought we were in for a long knockdown, drag-it-out series. But, Jay, there's something to that. In Game 3, and granted, Steve Kerr Warriors are terrific at making adjustments. But there was something sort of happening in Game 3 where it was reminiscent of the Miami series, which was an absolute bloodbath, right? Like big swings, very physical. And so the Celtics, to me, seem to be very comfortable playing a physical brand of basketball. And after Game 1, Draymond said it to us. He's like, he wasn't surprised by the Celtics because you see them during the regular season, but their length is something that you cannot replicate unless you have it. And so for them all to be kind of locked in, right in step with Ime Udoka, like they are playing really well at home. Now, we haven't necessarily seen them put two together, but I think for them, every opportunity they have to grow, I mean, you think about it, they lost Game 1 of the first 2 previous series. They knock out Game 1 in this particular series. Every opportunity that they have to grow, they seem to be relishing it. And so putting two together when you're in a good position is a big-time test for them.
No, even if Boston's more tested in these playoffs, never underestimate, Jay, the heart of a champion. Just listen to Klay Thompson, NBA on ESPN Radio.
Well, you have to realize that time is not on our side anymore. Treat tomorrow as a must-win. Even though it's not a closeout game, it's still incredibly important to get one here. That was our goal the whole time, and they just outplayed us Game 3. I mean, there's no way around it. And we're gonna, the best part about the playoffs is how you respond, and never underestimate the heart of a champion, and we have a lot of those.
Monica, like Klay seems to be very aware that there's more road behind them than ahead of them as a group. Do you think that gives them something, some urgency here?
Max, I'll tell you what. So we were having dinner with our terrific bosses. Shout out to Amanda Gifford and Pete Chone. Last night, our whole radio team had dinner. And Roz Golan-Woodey, our colleague, kind of brought this up. And when he said it to me, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like, you only have so many more games to get it together. But Roz, who is someone who was very mindful of the gratitude and was with the Warriors in those early runs, was like, I just thought he was talking bigger picture, to your point. And so there is something to be said for this underlying storyline I think we've seen all playoffs.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.